Yellow Mary, I'd like you to meet my photographer, Mr. Sneed. I've commissioned Mr. Sneed to photograph our family crossing over to the mainland. Its past is prologue.
I'm Richard Brody, and this clip is from Daughters of the Dust, a 1991 drama directed by Julie Dash. It's one of the most daringly constructed, visually astonishing American movies of its time. It tells a direct and painful story, or rather, an interwoven skein of stories, with a technique that is as aesthetically stimulating as it is historically revelatory. It's set in 1902 on St. Helena Island, off the coast of South Carolina and Georgia, where the Gullah people live. The descendants of slaves, or as is said in the film, captured Africans, who, living in relative isolation on the island, retained customs, religious practices, and even a language of their own. The story takes place early in the Great Migration of blacks from the south to the north and the west. It's centered on one family, the Peasant family, several members of whom have already gone to what's called the mainland and are returning to accompany many others who are preparing to make the trip north with them.
Hey, the last of the old and the first of the new. The older I get, the closer I get to the ground.
The film has many overlapping fields of action. The family matriarch, Nana Peasant, who practices traditional religion and will not leave the island. The gentrified Viola, a devout and proselytizing Christian who hopes to persuade her relatives to join her on the trip. And in the church. The prodigal cousin, Yellow Mary, who has become a prostitute. The photographer, Mr. Sneed, whose curiosity about the residents of the island, where Muslims and Native Americans also live, makes him a sort of freelance ethnologist. And Eula Peasant, who married Eli Peasant. Eula is pregnant, she was raped by a white farmer, and the film is narrated by her unborn child, a sort of seer, who reports that she will have to persuade Eli that he, and not the rapist, is in fact her biological father.
I remember how important the children were to the Peasant family, and how I had to convince my daddy that I was his child.
The African heritage that the Gullahs retain is the core of the film. One tale that runs through it is the myth of the Igbo, Africans who arrived together, stuck together, and, as the story goes, escaped together, defying their chains to walk on water. The historical debunking of that myth, transformed from a horrific yet heroic story of mass suicide, is itself a tragic vision of the birth and function of legend.
Those Igbo men, women, and children, 100 or more, shackled in iron. When they go down in the water, they ain't never come up. And nobody can walk on water.
With intimate attention to customs, clothing, language, history, memory, and landscape, Dash seems to x-ray, analytically and deeply, the history of black people in America. She sets the story at a time when slavery was still within the memory of the older generation and urban modernity still held out yet unspoiled promise. When the passage to whatever freedom might offer also threatened to break the links of oral tradition that sustained captives from generation to generation.
We come from a long, long line of creation and hope, begun by those first captured Africans. And Nana, she carried them with her. 4 generations of Peasant.
And Dash's visual, and for that matter sonic, style is derived from a tense and lyrical fusion of realistic clarity and visionary rapture.
I remember the call of my great-great-grandmother. I remember the journey home. I remember the long walk to the graveyard, to the house that I would be born in, to the picnic site. I remember.
She infuses island life with vast and nuanced inner worlds, with passions and dreams that seem pressurized to the breaking point, with conflicting emotions, and with agonies yet unresolved to this day.